my guy Link. So Link is the founder of a thing called Network. Network is indescribable by an idiot like me, but I'm going to try. But before I get to it, I want you to just give us a little intro, who you are, what your background is, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for organizing this event and for coming. It's a really cool space. I was telling him it looks a little bit like the Apple Store, without the tech. And like Nathan, thanks for helping to organize this as well, and all the people like filming, setting this up. Yeah, I'll try to keep it short. I mean,
We got time, brother. It's good, man.
Basically, I was born in Germany. I got into like video games at a young age. I was interested about films, and I played some tournaments like Magic the Gathering, and I played like World of Warcraft like for some time. And then sort of like I moved to the US by myself, and that was like my metaverse because I had never been here and never spoken the language. And as an immigrant, it's kind of like Hunger Games where you come here and like it's kind of like difficult even to stay. You can just after high school. Okay. So yeah, I did Abitur, which is in Germany. That's like equivalent to high school. Mm-hmm. And then as I was in Germany preparing for this, I got very interested in the stock market, and New York City has all this historical center of Wall Street.
Right.
And so I worked there for a while. I'll try to like speed up so we can talk about.
Don't take your time, brother. We got pretty good drinks. We're good.
And then I went to school in New York and in London. I did like 2 weeks.
You went to Harvard.
That was for grad school, yeah.
Yeah, me too.
So then, it's kind of like this journey of like my visa expires, and then how can I stay here? And after like Harvard and graduate school, I moved to like Silicon Valley. I helped some startups, and then from there I got slowly into crypto, and I did that for a while. And then a good friend got into like longevity, which is like anti-aging and how you can live longer. So I explored that, and I studied like brain-computer interfaces. And because I had done lucid dreaming as a kid, I sort of like got interested again into dreams, and I began exploring that and sort of combining all these different things into like what I call virtual dreams. So I can speak about
you just said about 17 hours worth of podcasting material, but I'm going to glaze over it to get to the main point tonight. Thank you for sharing that. Between Harvard and lucid dreams and all the things you said, it's really interesting. But when I do a little bit of research on everybody I try to interview, and he sent me his white paper for Network. I never did this before, but I have to do it because, I feel stupid reading Sports Illustrated. I felt like a caveman after this, but it's really, really interesting and important regarding what we're talking about, in history right now. So check this out. This is the first page of his white paper. You ready? Bear with me. A decentralized brain-computer network would allow anyone in the world to participate in exploring the frontier of the brain while creating a strong forcing function to accelerate the number of neurons we can currently interface with. A network of peer-to-peer brain computers would empower individuals to own the data that would flow between brains and computers. By creating a network of open, permissionless protocols for brain computers, a diverse set of stakeholders will govern and guide its future. Virtual dreams, as a novel medium, could become an alternative reality to explore the nature of reality and accelerate progress in the mind sciences. Other brain-computer applications could be developed as tools for individuals to heal and liberate themselves and others. That's the first of 25 pages. That's brains and computers working in conjunction. Am I right? That's like divergence. Okay, let's go back to work. How do you explain that to people like me? Like that? That's brains and computers working together.
Well, I think to understand this is to sort of like ask ourselves like what other frontiers are out there, and Elon Musk is like going to Mars to sort of create multiplanetary species, and I think like sort of the journey inward has been forgotten for a long time because the West has been so preoccupied with like discovering sort of the material world, and there's been a lot of progress, but now as we have technologies with brain-computer interfaces and neural interfaces. I think there's sort of like the beginning of a journey sort of that's more inward, and the metaverse is one word to describe that.
How does it work logistically? What does that mean? Brain computer interface. How would it I sit down and what's the prototype? How do we bridge the gap?
Billionaires, so when I started this, I didn't want to compete with Elon Musk. He's building Neuralink, and other billionaires in the U.S. government are developing different prototypes. Essentially, what a neural interface is some technology to connect the brain and the computer to be able to sort of interface with more neurons, to be able to understand what's going on in the brain, and to really sort of create a forcing function so we can manipulate neurons and build different applications to help people. Initially, it would be for people who have motor function disabilities, so we can restore sight, we can restore all these kind of things.
That's the first thing I thought of.
Yeah, and it's like the metaverse. I mean, it's not like a company; it's like an industry. I mean, it's basically a lot of people already working on that.
So I have 19,000 questions, but you're sitting. When does it come to you that I could do this, and why? And obviously it's decentralized. That's why you're here. And you're thinking about putting it on a chain. Did we get to that point yet? Is there a functioning model yet, or is it a theory? I know you've been working on this for about 1.5 years now, right?
Yeah, a little bit longer actually. But I started working on this. After meditating a lot and thinking about dreams and really this curiosity around lucid dreaming. For those people who don't know what lucid dreaming is, it's when you go to sleep and you have consciousness that you're dreaming while you're dreaming, and you can experience a dream like waking reality. It's pretty amazing that exists. And in the 70s, that was sort of established as a science, and in the Western world. And if you go back to Tibetan Buddhism, it's something known as dream yoga, which is very old. And it's really this idea of film, and film didn't always exist. So dreams could become a technology medium in the future where we can use those neural interfaces to sort of experience an alternative reality, and really use that to heal ourselves, use that to break infinite loops, and really sort of build a new sense of self, and be able to live with more freedom.
And it could help people that are injured, have brain injuries, paraplegics, people that don't have the ability for their neurons to connect anymore. You could bridge the gap, essentially.
Yeah, I'm not the expert on that, but there could be other people building different guides or algorithms to help people face certain fears or process trauma.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of different applications that.
Right. I didn't even consider that. There's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of
Yes. I mean, I think a huge societal problem is that we're all stuck in loops on multiple levels and that govern our reality in limiting ways. And I think we need to build technology that can actually help us to heal ourselves. I mean, people are very concerned about the pandemic, but think about how many people died because of mental health problems, and nobody really talks about this, and it's a big problem. We're very concerned about physical fitness, but despite all this progress that we've made in the world, mentally speaking, we could be way more advanced. We could have way better tools. And I think the computer revolution, or the personal computer revolution, has enabled us to acquire more tools and get more things. But I think with brain computers, we're sort of standing at a beginning of being able to create tools that would allow us to literally become more free. And I think that's very important, because otherwise it really doesn't matter how much you have, and it doesn't really matter if you're not really internally free. And a lot of people are discounting that, living in the present and being mindful, but that's it. Life is to be lived in the present moment, and there's nothing better than being free from these mental loops, so you can actually enjoy what you already have, and you can be more authentic and more genuine. And
mental loops.
Yeah.
It's interesting, because when I read that paragraph, I'm thinking to myself, this is you can interpret this as being scary, but what I'm hearing is your concept is to utilize it to bring us back to being more human. Because the instinct is to say, well, brain computer means that it's technology, and it's brains and computers are dangerous. Because I'm thinking the first thing that everybody would think is AI. You're going to control my brain. Can you hack my brain? How crazy are we going to get? But it's almost like technology and the human brain are moving at different paces. I don't think we were meant to absorb this much information. And when you say loop, it resonates with me, because I see a lot of us in a loop. We're in a loop because it's comfortable. How much of this can we really absorb? How much of it? So you're telling me you want to utilize it to free the mind and explore the possibilities.
Yeah, and then you know what the abstract, the white paper talks about is really sort of like, okay, if we have different brain-computer interfaces, how do we envision that future? We probably want to make sure that it's sort of based on cryptoeconomic paradigm, where if whatever comes out of this is sort of happening in a way that's open and permissionless. So then, if you go into a dream in the future, you know that nobody else can go into your dream and sell it or whatever else could happen.
Your dream becomes an NFT. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, if you
Don't
want
put me in that loop.
if you want to, I mean, if you want to share it, it's fine. But I think we need to have this basic foundation.
Wait a minute. You said if you want to share it, that's fine. So you're saying you could record dreams, essentially, in the future? You see a future where you do. That smile is crazy, man. Well, in a good way. So you see a future where my dream can be recorded and saved as a loop, as its own thing on the blockchain?
At some point, I mean, there's a Japanese research team that actually showed that you can record dreams. So, I mean, there's already some evidence to it.
Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
It's a lot to consider.
I mean, all these things will take a long time, but I think the other part to it is we want to make sure that neuroscientists care a lot about ethics. And the question is how can we afford ethics if sort of the power is concentrated within private BCI startups, and people are going to be too tempted to subscribe to any of this technology once it's available. So we need to basically build the network now. So then basically, as we have this future, it's owned by all of us, and it's not up to a few people to decide how that future is, because it's not crypto is also not just about building better tools and making money, whatever. It's about having actually a new world with new principles, and I think it's very important when we think about this sort of brain computer world to do that.
I mean, it's a completely new concept of a metaverse, because if we get to the point where everybody has this capability and it's available to everybody.
Yeah, we actually need to go beyond the metaverse. We need to go beyond the beyond, because it's not enough to just go into alternative reality. We need to actually come back to reality, kind of like Lord of the Rings, and really sort of defeat the loop and come back with more freedom.
When you say the loop, I know what I think of it. What do you think the loop is? You pick somebody out of the crowd and you think, look at this person, you say, what loop do I think that person, not anybody specific, I'm just saying if you pick somebody out of a crowd and you say this person's walking to work, nobody's really cognizant of a loop.
Yeah, I mean, I can't perform Inception on people yet. So.
No, I know, but people have loops. I think that resonated with me, because I have a certain routine and a habit and a thing that I do, and then sometimes other nights I do things that I shouldn't be doing, but that's out of the loop. But the truth is that when you say the loop, get people out of the loop, that's next level. That's like expanding the human existence, consciousness almost. Is that right?
Yeah.
Or am I just trying to sound smart?
Yeah, it could be, but I think basically it's just we wake up and we sort of have all these kind of assumptions about what reality is, and we have all these filters, how we perceive reality, and we're not really in the present. And it's because certain loops that we run that we don't even question that govern our reality, and it's really just sort of different for everybody else. But I think loop is just a good sort of mental model to understand.
Yeah, this comfort zone.
Because I think it comes down to problems. What is a problem? Sure, it's cool to go into alternative reality and the metaverse, but really what's important is how can we solve problems, and mental loop is this big problem. Because mental health sometimes is this word that people don't want to talk about. Yeah. But I think loops is something that everyone can resonate with. Right. And everyone has certain loops. And as a society, we have loops. As groups of people, we have certain loops. So it's everyone can also agree that they want to break those loops so they can have more freedom and they can enjoy more of what they already have.
Exactly. You mentioned mental health a lot.
Yes.
It resonates with you. Is there a reason why?
Yeah.
It's okay. You're talking to a psychotic maniac. It's okay, bro. You're in good company. If there's anything you want to share about you, your family, just because I think all of us are either in the throes of dealing with our own stuff or have family members, and it shouldn't be something we don't talk about. It's ignored. I always liken it to when somebody breaks their arm, you feel bad for them because you could see a broken arm. You can't see a broken brain. You can't see the pain and the struggle that somebody's going through. So we say mental health, especially people from my generation, it has this negative connotation, but it shouldn't. It should be as important, maybe more than physical damage. So hearing you say that a lot makes me feel like you're passionate about it.
Yeah, passionate.
Passionate about it. Right.
I mean, Yeah, I mean, growing up, I had a lot of like sort of like depressive, like bipolar, like loops that I had to sort of like learn to like sort of get out of, and like it took me a very long time, and it's a very difficult problem. And
It's not easy.
It's probably also then I moved to the United States. I mean, I didn't know anybody, and I played some World of Warcraft, and the next thing I was in New York City, and like it felt like virtual reality. And from that point on, that journey started, and I carried these problems for a long time. And
let me tell you something. I mean, you're in a room full of very smart people, and I would imagine, I would venture to say that most of the people in this room understand exactly what you just said, because it's a gift and a curse. The same brain that you were dealing with growing up and had those issues is the same brain that went to Harvard and created this insanely brilliant white paper. So it's a battle, right? It's
about making it happen, and sometimes being too vulnerable, then people think, you can't do this, and like. But now I solved the problem. It was like a very long journey, but your mind is very, you can imagine anything, and it's insane what the mind is capable of doing.
And the technology and the stuff that's happening in crypto right now. It's what I always talk about. I talked about with Multi-Chain Mike on the podcast last week, was that I don't care that all-time highs are off and there's this whatever. It means nothing to me. What I'm seeing now is the idea that technology is enabling things that never could have been possible.
Right.
So come and see us in 5 years and talk to me about what price things are. People who are worried about prices don't really understand the implications of
that's a good point.
this, right? Yeah. So how does the blockchain and how does crypto figure into what you're doing?
I mean, I guess what I'm doing is not really about crypto, but because I was in crypto early in a very long time, I'm just like using a lot of these tools as a way to like bootstrap and mobilize people and make sure that it's open and permissionless. At the end of the day, like you said, crypto economics can enable us to like build new use cases and imagine like different things. And that's really what it's about. Because what I'm doing doesn't work just as a company, and people would tell me, why are you trying to control people's dreams?
No, that's not it.
It's like the goal is really just to build a network and a protocol that can then govern this.
That's right.
And then we can all collectively do this. And I haven't even sold the token to investors. I've been trying to be very principled about doing this in the right way, which is very difficult, and legal uncertainty. I mean, a lot of people just like not doing that. I think
you have the freedom now.
But ultimately, like I said, I mean, if you take something like mental health, or take something like depression, what do we have? We have things that don't really solve the problem. We have things that sort of help you to alleviate the problem. Like you feel better temporarily. Like they attack the symptom. And the whole pharma industry is not really like actually like solving and incentivized to solve the problem. And then you have something like psychedelics, which is a little bit better, but it's not really accessible, and like it's not that safe, So then imagine something like lucid dreaming, and you have programmable psychedelics, and you have something that's much safer because you can connect to your neural interface, and you can actually go into an experience, and you can face those fears and process, whatever it is. And most likely, if you're in a point in your life where you're really down, where you may not trust anybody else, at that point maybe you trust still yourself and you have the most knowledge about your loops. And then maybe you can even solve it yourself to some extent, and then get some help. I just think like just how Bitcoin, Ethereum enabled all these different worlds and all these new use cases. Neuroscience has had a lot of scientific progress, but like it doesn't have the same type of like funding, and it doesn't have the same type of like structure where like funding could be way better, and like people could explore all this different thing. And so if we had a brain-computer network that would collectively invest and like share data and like sort of pursue these things. That would be kind of amazing, because like we couldn't even imagine what's possible yet, and it's kind of amazing that that's even like happening now. That like we can create a multi-reality sort of species, and we already have the basis with lucid dreaming, and it's a science. So
it just dawned on me that much like we have DAOs, and much like we have NFTs and people that are exploring blockchains to break away the music industry, people are breaking away from the traditional avenues of funding and research. That's where the blockchain comes in, I think. I think you present this is, by the way, enthralling to me. Like, you're amazing. I want to thank you for sharing what you're sharing. But at the same time, like, welcome to crypto, because now if the community hears enough of what you're saying, and the community by and large, what I mean is crypto people that understand what blockchains can really, 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 really do. You can circumvent that whole pharma industry, the whole medical field, all of that. The industry will say, yeah, he's right, he's smart, let's get behind him. And you might just, in 30 days, have enough of what you need to move forward. You know?
Yeah,
it's amazing, man. So what do you think, if you had to look into the future a little bit, what's the, in your opinion, like, your ultimate, what would be the greatest, the most satisfying and fulfilling thing for you to have happen in 1 year from now with network? It's a tough question, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like being able to download this vision of virtual dreams into reality and into the present day, and have more people believe this and actually be part of this. So there's more momentum and there's more network effects. So then we can actually realize all these things together, because it's really not up to me to decide the direction. Like, I'm just like setting the foundation, and then it's up to all of us to do this. And hopefully, like, you know, within a year's time, there'll be more momentum and more progress around that.
I'm going to open it up for questions in a minute, but is there a website? Is there anywhere people can go right now to learn a little bit more about it, learn a little bit more about you?
Yeah, you have to go to the metaverse to learn about it. No, I mean, there's a network.foundation, and there's like, it's like kind of a directory, and there's certain things you can like browse through from there. So just network.foundation. From there you can join the community, Telegram, Discord. There's a white paper, and there's other things, you know.
Yeah, man, thank you. Anybody have any questions? Okay, and then thank you.
I have a question. You know, I was read the white paper, so how did you see this network computerized? I understand what you're saying about how the intellect works. How would you see the unconscious mind is playing into that? Because I think no, there is a kind of an unconscious mind that we're not fully aware of. How would you see the computer network linking in with that? How would you sort of control the outcomes of that?
So the question is, how would you see the unconscious mind playing into that? And also, part of that question was, how do you control that? I don't know if that...
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's just, I think the network could basically provide more access, or, you know, all these technologies, they could provide more access to the unconscious. I mean, lucid dreaming, if you're able to practice that, is sort of like the nighttime version of meditation. And if you're able to access that on a regular basis, you can go into, you know, exploring your unconscious. And I think as a society, we don't really have access to the unconscious, because most people, you know, are not lucid dreamers. And so I think hopefully with neural interfaces, we can give people more access to these kind of unconscious experiences that we all have, and then it's up to like people to determine what that means to them. I guess it's very personal, you know, and then other people could come up with like different patterns that they see, but you know, I'm just like figuring out, okay, how can we get more access to this? Or the lucid dreaming community as well, they're trying to build different like sleeping masks with technology to give people more access to lucid dreaming. I mean, the metaverse is also like some version of that. So I guess it's just like, how can we, the next screen is basically inside the experience, you know? And, you know, we're starting to like realize that, and we're starting to go into that. Sort of like, imagine in the future at the Metropolitan Museum, you go there and you use a neural interface and you go into the painting and you have some experience that the artist has created.
Right.
And just instead of just looking at the painting, you're inside the painting and you're experiencing the world of the artist. And so like, yeah, I suppose like, just we're building bridges towards the unconscious.
It's about healing and understanding and growing, yeah. Sir?
That's a lot. I feel like what you're doing, but I was a bit confused about like the real innovation behind network. Is there like a protocol, like TCP/IP, but for the brain like network? Is there a hardware company? Like, what's the actual product?
The logistics of it. He's asking what's the hardware and the product behind it.
Yeah, I mean, on the protocol level, it's to create, you know, a cryptographic medium between brains and computers in the form of virtual dreams, so that in the future, when these neural interfaces exist, then you know that you can use sort of like dreams in an open and permissionless manner. Now, there could be other ways to like sort of like capitalize on the network as this technology exists, to help people to create experiences that would, have some healing properties or help people to like do that. I mean, because all of this is so early, like it's also just building that network and then figuring out what kind of like you sort of like how the product emerges from building the community. Like, I mean, all these things are very early. Like, crypto still is also very early. Right. So it's like, I think the innovation is to create dreams as a medium like film and music, right? That doesn't exist right now. And then building a network to enable that in whatever way and making sure that those principles are basically embodied, in that technology. It's not about me to like, build a specific implementation of the technology. It's about creating a network that sort of like, has that momentum and, incentivizes people to like build different implementations towards that vision. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. Somebody had a backup?
So one of the things I'm actually most excited about the metaverse is it's hard for me to imagine that we've had the experience of going into the metaverse and we'll be able to play with gravity and change form and then come back to this world and not be able to access new parts of our mind. And it just sounds really in line with what you're talking about. Like, I'm imagining the metaverse to sort of be like a lucid dream. What do you think about that?
So the question is more about how do I imagine the metaverse versus like lucid dream?
And also she said she envisions going to the metaverse and playing around with gravity and different things, and how does that affect your brain when you come back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good question. Yeah, take a minute. I can play some Jeopardy music while you think of an answer. It's a deep question. It's really good.
Yeah, I mean, generally I think, and I don't know if that answers your question, but generally I think you're able to bring certain insights back. Obviously, like, lucid dreaming experience or metaverse experience will have certain different properties than, this reality, and, there will always be a difference. But maybe the question is also about, like, are you able to bring back those insights, from the metaverse or from a lucid dream? And you can. I mean, like, there's been enough lucid dreamers that have reported, around, like, different things that they were able to learn or different fears that they were able to face. Yeah. Right. So
it's feasible, and it's not.
And I think, it's just like sort of like this. There will be sort of this two-way feedback loop reflexively to influence like this reality, and then it will make you question, sort of like what is reality? Maybe it's all just a dream, and like it will sort of like question. Will you question a lot of things in both worlds, I guess, and it will be like an ongoing thing, and then at some point. They will like seem maybe more similar, but there will still be differences.
It's not to coalesce.
Yeah.
Somebody else? Sir? Yes.
Question as much as it's a statement. While you were talking, I kept hearing this phrase in my head. I thought maybe you might want to use it. I don't know, like the inner verse.
The inner verse. Copyright that.
Exploring the world within.
Yeah.
That sounds like it's doing like the exploring
Innerverse.
the world inside, right?
Yeah, innerverse is also a good way of saying that.
The metaverse is something that's established. Like there's certain limitations that's in the metaverse, but inside, in your innerverse, like I lucid dream.
Right.
And when you lucid dream, you don't have any limitations.
Right.
So will your software have that aspect where, like, say if I'm using it and I'm dreaming, I can constantly create the reality that's in front of me?
I mean, yes. I mean, this will obviously happen in stages, and like all of this is very early, and it won't, be able to like give you the experiences like inception right away, and this will happen over time. Yeah. I mean, innerverse I think is a good word. In some ways, I'm trying to stay away from like metaverse or anything verse related, because just to make it more distinguished. But I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what we call it. It's really just like I think it's really dreams what it is, and dreams mean different things to different people, but everyone knows what a dream is.
We have another question here. I'm sorry, I never get to you.
Are there any specific type of like medicinal psychedelics that were researched by the form of programming? That's part one, and then part two. Can you talk a little bit about dream ownership?
Yeah. So the question was, Were there hallucinogenics involved that?
No, nothing to use them.
Not that you use them, were they you were inspired by the idea of hallucinogenics? And then dream ownership. I'm buying his first NFT, I'll tell you right now.
I'll try to speak about it more generally. I mean, a psychedelic is sort of like a lucid dream without the virtual reality aspect, right? And the advantage of a psychedelic is that you can take it with someone that can guide you during the experience to face those fears or process certain things in a way that's difficult in a lucid dream, because shared lucid dreaming is just very, very hard. Maybe not even, some people not possible, it's not possible. And so I think like those properties of psychedelics are very powerful. And I think that's why also like there's way more investments going into psychedelics, and this renaissance is happening within psychedelics, right. Because it has those properties, and it could be used in that way. And there's a lot of investments going into how we can create a psychedelic experience that could help people, heal from certain things. Lucid dreaming is sort of like a more virtual reality experience of a psychedelic, and also I think it's in a way it's safer. Because like right now psychedelics are not really legal in most places, and you have to trust the person giving it's like, and then you cannot really talk about it. So it's like, if you had I think safety is very important, because like, if you're going to be in this very vulnerable state, like you want to make sure it's very safe, so then you have the confidence to like face those fears and process those things.
And to that point, he was talking about dream ownership.
Right. I mean, that's just like, I think it's very important, as we build the metaverse, and there's a lot of people in the NFT community who also talk about the open metaverse. It's just important, dreams is just like what I'm specifically working on, but it's just very important that sort of like that data is like open and permissionless, and that you sort of have ownership over that. I mean, it's sort of like, what Web3 or Bitcoin or Ethereum, whatever you want to call it.
It's like you mint a dream. It's your dream, you minted it, and you have to have the seed phrase for your own dream.
Yeah, but you also you need to have cryptographic guarantees that as you enter into a virtual dream or a metaverse experience, that like nobody can just like incept your dream, and like nobody can just listen on your dream without your permission.
I've never needed to drink more than on Crypto Monday than right now. But one more question. Drawbacks. Right. What are the drawbacks? And then we'll wrap it up after this. All right. Yes, sir. One more after this.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Let's just do it.
Okay. So the question was,
as long as you guys are cool with it, we're good with it, right?
Yeah.
You can hang out a little bit and ask questions. We're good, right?
So the question is about the drawbacks of what particular?
Just drawbacks in general. What do you think some of the drawbacks might be, and what are you doing to prevent them? The technological drawbacks. What might be like owning your own dream and?
In some ways, I already talked about this.
Yeah, it feels like you did it.
But like, I think like to reiterate, I guess.
Be careful. Own your stuff and watch it.
Yeah, it's just very important that we build this future in a mindful way, and that we make sure that the power is returned to the individual, and like that all of us sort of like control this, and that it's not a small set of actors that are determining the direction of this. Right. And that's sort of that, the access to that data is like open and permissionless. And then we also use it, for helping people to heal themselves instead of just for, entertainment purposes. Right. Nothing wrong with that, I mean, you can use that and have also fun. Like
ultimately, what you're talking about, the idea and the concept, the mindset behind it is so positive and so good that it should carry it through. You'll get your moments where people are trying to do X, Y, Z, steal stuff, and take people's dreams and thoughts. But ultimately, the foundation is morally right.
Right. I mean, in 2020, nobody really talked about the metaverse, and then all of a sudden, 2021,
exactly
all these things happen. Everyone already talks about the sort of like the
metaverse.
Yeah. And it's like enough people. In some ways, I feel like it's already happening. I don't need to work on this because it's already happening. Like there's enough capital like going towards this. So like, but I think what needs to happen is that we come back to reality, and that we build this in a way that actually help people to like heal themselves. And that's why I think this mental model of virtual dreams is good, because it's what I'm working on is the motivation is not just to like get people into the metaverse. I said this before, but also bring them back into reality,
right.
Or bring yourself into reality. And like, you know yourself best, and so like you can probably do that yourself, or you can have access to help.
Incredible, man.
And like I'm not against like I mean, psychedelics are great. The pharma industry helps also a lot of people coping. I mean, all these things, like the metaverse is also great. It's just, I think, what distinguishes this from everything else, and it is, I think, virtual dreams and creating dreams as a sort of like new medium, and with that purpose of not just going into alternative reality, but also like coming back and coming back with more freedom, and that's what this country is about. I think freedom is a very strong principle that I think everyone sort of like agrees with, and I mean, I think we could have more freedom, and I think we can get it ourselves if we just look more inward.
And that's the basis of it. Right?
And I think the technology has the potential to do that, and so hopefully a drawback would be if we just like get so obsessed about being in the metaverse that we forget about reality ultimately is better than the metaverse. It's just because we're not paying attention and we're asleep to it. Like, I mean, otherwise everybody would be lucid dreaming. But the reality is people go to sleep and they have delusional dreams and they don't even know what's going on, and they're sort of like being, watching the dream. I'm not sure what's going on.
Sometimes I go to sleep and dream that I'm Lance Thomas, who happens to be here tonight and has a question. Mr. Thomas, is that a segue? Is that a segue? All right.
I think what you're doing is genius. I think that what a lot of us have realized during this pandemic is that a lot of people, for the first time in their lives, had to sit alone with their thoughts. Right? It was the one time in our history, at least, where the world stopped, and there was no real punishment for it. Right? Like, you weren't working, you didn't have to pay your rent, you didn't have to do anything. There was a point in time where you had to sit alone and be with your own thoughts.
No consequences.
It was the first time where you actually had to journey inward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are very scared of who they are internally.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't even like to look in the mirror, right? Let alone look inside and see all the stuff that they've brushed under the carpet for years, right? So there is, like, I want to answer some of the questions I heard because I can definitely relate to a lot of it. Lucid dreaming and the metaverse are two completely different things.
Right.
Lucid dreaming is getting up to lucid dreaming is you being more wave and less matter, right? So like a lot of these people who yearn for these things, they go for it going into it with a psychedelic approach, right? Like, for instance, like most people will either do ayahuasca, they might do mushrooms, right? But little do they know that you can get to these altered states of reality internally, right? Like the active component in LSD and the active component in ayahuasca is DMT. We naturally can create that.
Right.
And people don't even know that. We have in our pineal gland.
It just sparks it. Ayahuasca and LSD just
We have calcite in our pineal gland, which helps change the chemical component of our serotonin. Serotonin wakes us up, turns into melatonin when it's time to go to sleep.
Right.
The spinal fluid that we push straight up, like through deep meditation, when you do that, the pressure that goes around the pineal gland with the pressure of the calcite crystals in there changes the chemical component of the melatonin, which turns it into DMT.
Yeah, so we have it in us.
Takes you to these altered states of reality. People who lucid dream naturally get there. That space is called the quantum, right? So this technology is going to be able to help you literally download thoughts.
It's incredible, right?
The quantum here.
Yeah.
And I think it's genius to do that because a lot of people now are, the psychedelic phase is people starting to realize that they are starting to wake up the more dormant parts of our brain. We only use anywhere between 5 to 10% of our brain anyway.
Right.
So when you venture to these alternate states, right? Like I've been there plenty of times. I know how to get there. I can sit here for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I can probably get there.
Is that right?
From just practicing, knowing how to control it.
Wait till the end of the night, please.
But not I'm saying a lot of people don't really understand.
Right.
The journey inward is way more important.
It's deep.
The metaverse is a distraction. A lot of people are going to the metaverse to be something and then come back, and they still have those traumas because all they're doing is being distracted from what's really happening on the inside.
That's exactly what he said.
Lucid dreaming is very important.
It is.
I think that people need to get more in touch with who they are on the inside because you shouldn't be looking outward before you look inward. Know who you are. That way, everything in front of you is an opportunity. It's like in the quantum. Everything is an opportunity. If you look at it, you got to go up there with intention.
Oh, that's incredible, man. Thank you, man. Thank you. Did you
hear that question as well?
But isn't that kind of exactly what you said?
Yeah, exactly.
You guys should switch business cards. Go ahead, brother.
So how do you
Thank you. Sorry, brother.
Yeah, great remarks.
No. Can you summarize that a little
I
bit?
mean, he was just saying lucid dreaming has enormous value and it goes beyond the metaverse. And people are realizing that now, and we should just tap more into this. And that I'm a genius.
Essentially, what he's saying is that we have the ability to do what he's talking about. We don't need, the human body is capable of producing DMT, and you can get there without LSD, ayahuasca, or mushrooms. You can do it. And if you know how to do it and you study it, you can get there. So this just accelerates that.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point actually what he said is like lucid dreaming you can generate yourself without taking any substance whatsoever. Like you were able to by sheer realization while you're asleep, you can get lucid. And I think that's very important because we're so conditioned to oh, I need to take something to feel better, or I need to take something to have a certain state of mind. And in some ways, the metaverse is about obtaining certain states of mind. In Buddhism, there's certain jhanas, but ultimately, it's about freedom. It's about not being stuck in a particular state where you feel good about. It's about actually realizing you're in prison and then making sure that you get out of it and become free. And it's very difficult and it's a long journey. So really it's just how can we build more technology to give people more access to this and then have enable them to have support from other people to actually make that journey, easier and more helpful and so actually more people can be free because then they can actually follow their dreams and do whatever they want to do and be happier and we can have a more peaceful world. And I think that should be it's very important, because we have come so far, we just need to make sure that we don't destroy ourselves, you know? And that is super important. And for that we need to raise our levels of consciousness
And each other.
And it's not important how fast we go towards something, but that we also go with certain ethics and principles that are sort of embedded in
what you're talking about. I'm sorry, brother. I know you're in the middle of asking a question.
So how do you see issues about if one person generates a dream, the other, if their background's in different language, say English, but then another user tends to be German, they're going to be inspired, or
You want to get this one? Google Translate.
Okay, so put it between that.
No, but what do you think about that? So
the question is if in the future there's a shared virtual dream and then people with different languages are going to be in the same dream, how they're going to communicate?
Yeah.
I mean, part of it is there's this great article by Wade, what's it called? Anyway, there's a great article which talks about essentially also Elon Musk talks about this basically, that language is not going to be obsolete, but we're going to have different ways of communicating basically, and so I think at that point people would then communicate in a different way that maybe we can't even imagine yet. Like
emojis?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Emojis, yeah.
That's my contribution to the conversation.
So yeah, I mean that's what's going to happen naturally as we have brain-computer interfaces. We'll have essentially new communication levels, new language, which is groundbreaking in itself, right? So I would imagine that there'll be ways to communicate that we can't even conceive of yet.
Ladies and gentlemen, Link Daniel, Cryptomondays. Come on, man. Thank you, brother. Let's just drink a ridiculous amount of alcohol right now.
And the article is Wait But Why. It's basically a Neuralink and brain-computer interfaces. It's a really long essay, which is really cool. And there they talk also about how we're going to have new languages. There's so much to this. It's kind of amazing, just to think about it.
Yeah.
And we're so early to this,
You're going to stick around, right?
Yeah, if anyone has any questions.
You want to talk about it? Link, he's going to be here. If you want to talk to me about stuff that happened in Brooklyn last night, I'm here too. Have a good night, guys. Wow.